Marcus Chen was 17 years old, 5 feet 9 inches tall, and weighed maybe 130 pounds on a good day. His clothes were secondhand, purchased from a donation bin behind the community center in South Oakland, California. His shoes had holes in the bottom where his socks showed through, and he wore them anyway because his single mother could not afford another pair. This was not a sad story wearing the costume of inspiration porn. This was simply his life, and Marcus did not think of it as tragic. He thought of it as his current reality, something to work around rather than something to be paralyzed by. Marcus had been playing guitar since he was 6 years old. His elementary school music teacher, Mr. Patterson, had given him a battered classical guitar that had been sitting in the school's lost and found for 3 years. Mr. Patterson could have donated it, could have sold it, could have simply thrown it away. Instead, he handed it to Marcus during recess one day and said, "I think this instrument has been waiting for you." Marcus carried that guitar home like he was holding his most precious possession. In a way, he was. His mother, Diana Chen, worked 3 jobs. She was a morning shift nurse at Highland Hospital, a part-time accountant for a small business in the evenings, and on weekends she cleaned houses for wealthy families in the hills. She was exhausted most of the time, but she never made Marcus feel like he was a burden. When he came home with that guitar, she cried. Not because they were sad tears, but because she recognized something in her son's eyes that she had lost years ago. Hope. The kind of hope that comes from holding something beautiful and believing it might change everything. The guitar became Marcus's best friend. He taught himself to play by watching free tutorials on an old laptop that he shared with his mother. He watched concerts from YouTube, learned songs from artists he loved, and spent hours on the fire escape of their apartment building playing scales and practicing finger techniques. Their neighbors didn't complain. Some of them said his music made their days better. One elderly woman, Mrs. Rodriguez, who lived 2 floors below them, would sometimes leave homemade tamales on the stairwell for Marcus. She said his music was payment enough, but she wanted him to have something substantial to eat. When Marcus was 14, his mother took him to see an American Got Talent live show in San Francisco. It was meant to be a birthday present, but Diana could only afford tickets in the back row of the cheapest section. They took the bus from Oakland, and Marcus wore his one good pair of pants, the ones he saved for school presentations and important events. He watched people sing, dance, perform magic tricks, and display incredible feats of athleticism. But what struck him most was watching Simon Cowell watch the performers. Marcus noticed that Simon seemed bored by perfection. He leaned back in his chair with an expression of mild disdain when technically flawless singers took the stage. But something shifted in Simon's face when a performer showed something unexpected, something raw, something that seemed to come from a place of absolute truth. Marcus turned to his mother and whispered, "If I ever get on that stage, I'm going to play something that he's never heard before." Something true. Diana squeezed her son's hand and said nothing. But she believed him. She had learned to believe in Marcus the way she believed in nothing else in her life anymore. The turning point came when Marcus was 16. His school held a talent show, and his music teacher, Ms. Patterson, who had now become Marcus's mentor, encouraged him to participate. He was terrified. He had never performed in front of a large group before. His performances had only ever been on the fire escape, in his bedroom, or at the community center where he sometimes played for people waiting in the food bank line. The night of the talent show, he played an original composition he had been working on for months. It was a piece inspired by his mother's journey, by her sacrifice, by the way she hummed while she cleaned other people's houses because she was too tired to speak. He called it, "Hands That Built My World." The audience was silent during the performance. Complete silence. When he finished, the applause was not immediate. It started slowly, then built into something that felt like thunder. A girl in the front row was crying. His principal came backstage afterward and told him that she had never seen a high school talent show audience respond that way to a performance. That night, Marcus knew he had to try for American Got Talent. He had to get on that stage. He had to show Simon Cowell what he had learned about the difference between perfection and truth. The audition process was humbling. He submitted a video of himself playing in his bedroom, filmed on his mother's old smartphone with her permission to do it during her 15-minute bathroom break at the hospital. He waited 3 months without hearing anything. Then came an email. His heart stopped. The subject line said, "Congratulations. You're invited to audition for American Got Talent Season 28. His hands shook as he read it. The audition would be in Los Angeles in 4 months. Those 4 months were the most intense period of Marcus's life outside of actually surviving poverty. He worked part-time at a grocery store after school to save money for the trip to Los Angeles. He played guitar every single day, sometimes for 8 hours a day, whenever he wasn't working or at school or sleeping. He perfected his original composition, and he chose a cover song that he felt showed his range. His mother worried he was working too hard, but she also recognized that fire in him that she had seen the night he came home with that first guitar. She did not try to extinguish it. The week before the audition, disaster struck. Marcus's mother fell at work. She wasn't seriously injured, but she had to take time off from 2 of her 3 jobs. The family was suddenly short on money for rent. Marcus was devastated. His dream of going to Los Angeles suddenly felt selfish. He offered to stay home, to go to work instead, to help cover the bills. But Diana would not hear of it. She sat him down at their small kitchen table and took his face in her hands, the same hands that had cleaned toilets and bathed sick patients and scrubbed floors to keep him alive. She said, "Baby, I didn't work this hard so that you could work this hard. I worked this hard so that you could get up on that stage and show the world what you're made of. You're not staying home. You're going to Los Angeles. And you're going to blow them away." Her conviction was absolute. Marcus's conviction became absolute too. The day of the audition arrived. Marcus wore his one good pair of pants and a blue button-down shirt that his mother had bought for him from a thrift store years ago. He wore his old shoes with the holes, because he didn't own any others. He carried his guitar in a case that had belonged to the school before Marcus had lovingly repaired it with new latches and fresh paint. He and his mother drove down to Los Angeles the night before. They couldn't afford a hotel, so they slept in the car in a parking lot near the audition venue. His mother held his hand while he tried and failed to sleep. In the morning, they ate sandwiches that Diana had made before they left Oakland. They sat in the car and Marcus played his composition softly, just for his mother. She cried. She did not try to hide her tears. The audition venue was enormous. There were hundreds of people waiting. Marcus saw people with professional photographers, people with managers, people in outfits that cost more than everything Marcus owned in the world. He felt the weight of his old shoes, the thinness of his second-hand shirt, the worn fabric of his pants. He almost turned back, almost convinced himself that he didn't belong here. But then he thought about his mother's hands. He thought about every time she had hummed while cleaning other people's homes. He thought about Mr. Patterson giving him that first guitar. He thought about Mrs. Rodriguez's tamales left on the stairwell. He thought about the girl in the front row of his school talent show crying. He took a breath and got in line. When his turn came, a producer looked at Marcus and asked his name, age, and what he would be performing. Marcus told her his name and that he was 17 years old. She asked about his background, his experience, whether he had any professional training. Marcus said no. He had taught himself. The producer's expression was neutral, neither encouraging nor discouraging. She told him to proceed to the main stage. Walking onto that stage was surreal. The auditorium was cavernous and mostly empty except for the judges' table where Simon Cowell sat alongside 3 other judges. The lights were blinding. A camera was pointed directly at him. Marcus realized in that moment that this was real, this was actually happening, and he was absolutely terrified. He walked to the center of the stage and the microphone. The stage manager asked him to introduce himself, to explain what he would be performing. Marcus looked directly at the camera, but in his mind he was looking at his mother sitting in the car in the parking lot. She was looking at the girl who had cried at his school talent show. He was looking at Mr. Patterson and Mrs. Rodriguez and every person who had ever believed in him when belief made no rational sense. He said, "My name is Marcus Chen. I'm 17 years old from Oakland, California. I live with my mom, who is the strongest person I know. I'm going to play a song I wrote called Hands That Built My World. It's about her. It's about sacrifice. It's about the moment when you realize that the person you love most is breaking themselves to fix you, and you can't stop them, you can only promise to make it worth it. I don't know if I'm good enough to be here. I don't even know if I deserve this opportunity. But I know that my mom believes in me. And I know that I have something to say with this guitar. So here it is." He placed his fingers on the guitar strings and began to play. The composition started quietly, almost mournfully, with a finger-picking pattern that mimicked the rhythm of washing, cleaning, scrubbing, working. The notes built slowly, each one a small story of sacrifice. His voice entered, and it was not a technically perfect voice. It was raw and honest, and it cracked slightly with emotion as he sang about watching his mother's hands move through repetitive motions, about the way exhaustion looked on her face, about the moment he understood that she was happy not because her life was easy, but because she had him. The song moved through different sections, building in intensity, the guitar becoming more urgent, the vocals becoming stronger. The final verse was almost sung through tears, though Marcus did not allow himself to fully cry while performing. The composition ended with a single repeated note played slowly, letting the vibration decay into silence. For a moment, there was nothing. The stage was silent. The audience was silent. The judges were silent. Then one of the judges on the left, a woman named Haley who was known for her emotional depth, put her face in her hands. Her shoulders were shaking. She was crying. One of the other judges, a man named Jackson, was leaning back in his chair with his hand pressed against his chest, his eyes glistening. The fourth judge, a woman named Jennifer, was shaking her head slowly, not in disapproval but in a kind of amazed recognition of something raw and real. Simon Cowell had not moved. He was staring at Marcus with an expression that Marcus could not read. 30 seconds passed. Then Simon leaned forward. Then something extraordinary happened. Simon Cowell, who had not hit the golden buzzer in 8 years of American Got Talent, the golden buzzer that sends a performer directly to the live shows without any more auditions, who was famous for his skepticism and his refusal to be easily moved, who had seen thousands and thousands of performers, reached underneath his judge's table and slammed his hand down on the golden buzzer.